Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Today's going to be a really exciting episode, different than what we've done in the past. And the reason that I had Dr. Gary on today is he has been leading part of our retreat here at Exhale 2.0 in Grand Cayman. And I couldn't be more excited to learn a little bit more about the stuff that he's been teaching us and more of what he's going to be teaching us in the next couple of days. So, hey everybody, I'm Eric Obrempt, and you're listening to Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. We talk about real shit, what's on our minds, and don't give a fuck if it makes you feel a little uncomfortable. So sit back, strap in, and get ready for some real shit. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. I'm your host, Eric Obrempt, here in Grand Cayman. We're gonna get right into it. First, we will thank our sponsor though, SMA Support Services, for all your virtual assistant needs. If you need to scale your back end, your front end, your rear end, your side end, I don't give a fuck what you got to scale, but if you got to scale something, use SMA Support Services. If you don't know anything about SMA Support Services, well, you're living under a fucking rock. But if you want to know more, reach out to me, Adam Patterson, Joe Hoffman, whoever you want to reach out to, but find out more about SMA Support Services, how you can outsource your admin tasks and grow the back end of your company. Okay, so let's get into it. I want to introduce my guest. I'm going to try it without asking. Dr. Gary, I already forgot it.
Montemayor.
I remembered the mayor part. Montemayor. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it, man. Like, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
We've spent a couple of days upstairs already with you teaching us, if you will. And the reason that I had originally asked you here was because I wanted this trip to really imbibe the name of the trip of Exhale, right? And I wanted to have somebody that's way fucking smarter than me teach these guys how to take a breath, how to calm down, how to get into a different state so that we can, make proper decisions. So tell everybody a little bit about your background real quick, just the nickel tour so they understand who you are and give yourself some credibility, and then I want to dig into it a little bit.
Sure. I have a PhD and doctorate in natural medicine. I have a small clinic here in Cayman, and we work with what's called quantum medicine, energy medicine, if you will. And we do something called measuring the mystical, where we actually take ancient modalities and use modern metrics to be able to measure them. And I also, before I did this, I was a submarine pilot and deep sub pilot, and I worked all the way around the world doing research and documentaries and taking people down. And so I really enjoyed that part of my life. I was a chief pilot on board the Octopus, which was Paul Allen's yacht. And I was his test pilot, but I was gone 8 months out of the year. So my wife said, "You're gone too much and you need to come home." So, well.
We still have that wife?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, just checking. Didn't know if you were like, yeah, but I really like it.
Yeah, no, I was lucky with that one.
Okay, good. So what got you into this kind of natural medicine, quantum medicine?
Yeah, it was energy medicine. One of the things that I had studied and learned about was something called Tantra. And there's two types of Tantra. There's a dark Tantra and a kind of a spiritual Tantra. And I was... Is that
like the tantric sex thing?
Yeah, that's the dark side of it. They call it dark. So they just call it dark side.
Okay.
It doesn't mean it's dark. But yes, very much so. It's ancient. It comes from the idea that at the base of our spine, there's something called the Kundalini. It's this spiraled energy, and when it straightens up, it can cause a Kundalini rising, or almost orgasm without, a self-orgasm.
Right.
And so one of these experiences, I said, this is amazing because it's such a healing experience as well. And I decided, there's got to be other ways. My first career was in medicine, and I decided to...
medicine?
Like medicine. Yeah, I went to medical school. I was in New York at St. Barnabas Hospital. It's a Cornell teaching hospital. I was in, every other night on call, and it was during the time of AIDS. So our ward was full of people that were dying. So I had a real human experience, but I decided that's not what I wanted to do. Anyway, as I come back into medicine, mixing this Kundalini with the act of actually connecting with people, I felt this real desire to study further. So I started looking into it, started studying, taking classes, ended up going for my master's, and then did a PhD and doctorate in natural medicine.
Where did you do that at?
In Honolulu, Hawaii.
Okay.
A place called Quantum University School of Integrated Medicine.
So are there many places that you can study that?
Not many.
Okay.
Yeah, it's if you were a doctor before, you can go study the integration of this. Of energy medicine with modern medicine, and a lot of doctors now and medical schools actually have courses in integrated medicine. So we're starting to integrate energy medicine, things that that were, I don't know, somewhat woo-woo in the past.
Yeah.
They're coming into the mainstream now.
Yeah.
And people are saying no more to big pharma.
Well, I was going to say, does it scare the real doctors? Because it kind of fucks with their money, doesn't it?
Yeah,
or at least the pharma side.
I would say the pharma side. A lot of the doctors and the doctors that I know here are really wanting to sit down and say, so now what is it that you do, and how can they help me? So I'm inviting them into the clinic and showing them, some of the gadgets we have about how we measure stress, and how we measure the human energy field, human biofield, energy centers and meridians and things like that from Taoist and Ayurvedic medicine, and it's all integrated now. And so we're starting to find out that these things can actually help. There's healing touch professionals, which I do as well. It's a modality just using energy. They're in a lot of ICU units and chemotherapy units.
What are?
These people, these nurses that go around and heal with their hands. And the reason why is because they've
Sounds
shown...
like Mr. Miyagi shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And so what's happening is it's showing that the blood vessels are dilating, and the glands are starting to excrete their hormones in balance.
What's the magic behind that?
It's one of the things that we do measure. It's one of the things that these people become conduits of energy. They actually send this energy into the patient, and the patients are responding because most of them, are in a very ill state, and they have a lot of these, kind of dark energy, and these people are clearing it out.
Do we know how?
We don't know how. We can only speculate.
Okay.
And the reason why is because we measure them before and we measure them after.
Okay.
And we know that there was a change. And rather than the person next to them just lying there and, they didn't have any change during,
right.
But when this person was getting this energy healing with this lady over the top of them doing some work, they're seeing physiological changes.
Okay, let me ask this. Just to be the critic guy, right? So in my mind, my first reaction would be, can that be, and because I think I think you said it this morning, I mean, like a lot of this is in our mind, right? Like you can make pain go away from your mind, right? I have a coach that does that with me, right? You can, I think people get sick because of their fucking mind and get well because of their mind, right?
Right.
So does something like that, if we're talking about some mystical lady that's got her energy and, is fucking putting her hands on people and making them feel better, is there something there that an argument could be that, and I know the answer as well, it's in your mind, but could it be a placebo effect?
Absolutely, and the placebo is very interesting. It is, a lot of times they do placebo trials on drugs, where they give sugar pills to some and the medication to the other. And sometimes 20% of them, we get in the sugar pills, actually get better. And if we swap group A and group B, there's another 20% get better. So almost 40% are getting better from just taking this. So the power of belief. Right. I was going to say, doesn't that prove that the fucking power of your mind can do a lot of things? The power of your mind is what, what most of us go on to get better. So, and that's one of the things that, that I study and I look at is, just the power of the mind. And we talk about a belief system. It's just that simple. Yeah. It's just that simple. Believe. It's really interesting because we were even having a conversation today, and one of the guys in the group had said something, and I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said something to the effect of, well, my thing doesn't work that way, and it won't do this, and it won't do that. And it went back to that old quote that we see online all the time. It's like, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Yep. Right? That's right. That's right. I mean, at the end of the day, right? That's right. And I always thought, the woo-woo shit was kind of fucking nuts and crazy and whatever. And I got hooked up with a coach that
is very much into the science behind it, which is why I was attracted to you and wanted to get to know you better, because you're very similar minded to my coach, Clay Moffat, who's from Australia, lives out in Thailand now, and like we have weekly meetings, and like he would hypnotize me and like do all kinds of crazy shit, and I'd be like, oh, my back's hurting. He's like, well, let's do this thing, and I had to like close my eyes and pull colors out and do all like nuts, and all of a sudden I'm like, it doesn't fucking hurt anymore.
Yeah, interesting.
Which is insane.
Right.
Like I'd spin it around and I'd pull the color out and I'd throw it away, and I was all of a sudden I was like, fuck, I think I'm all right. And it's like, well, that's insane. Like, what the fuck is going on? But I think, and most people are scared of that.
Sure.
Would you agree?
Yeah, a lot of people are.
Why do you think people are scared of that? I have an idea, but why do you think people are scared of that?
That would be a hard one for me to speculate on. I just think that we've lived so long in what's called the allopathic medicine, Western medicine, that anything outside of that, and we've been taught that that's just nonsense. You walk into a healer, they say the word chakra or your journey, and you're out the door. So I don't want to hear this chakra journey stuff. But a lot of that stuff has been diluted so bad by practitioners that weren't really practitioners, that the real people are lost within all these new people that are coming up through the ranks, so to speak. And so, yeah, I would say that it's unproven in a lot of ways, and until just recently have we started to see the data that it is working.
So for me, it seems, and this will piss some people off, but that's cool. It seems to me that most of the people that I see that are possibly the biggest skeptics of a lot of this are extremely religious people. And I'm curious as to if you've seen that, and if there's a reason that you think that there would be a correlation there.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because a lot of times when you go to very religious Catholic masses, they're burning incense to move spirits, And,
good point.
Yeah, during Easter, these special events to symbolize this energy healing that they want to do, and so they're within the context of that particular religion that I know. And then you go into evangelicals.
Do you know it because you were?
I grew up as a Catholic.
Got it.
But if you go to evangelicals, they're lining up, and the preacher's putting their hand on his head, on their head, and they're falling down, and because they believe this guy has the ability to heal them. And if you believe, like we just talked about, these people are getting healed.
But this one's different, and it's not through their God.
That's right.
That's the answer.
That's it. That's the answer. That's the answer. It is, absolutely.
Because it's not through theirs.
It's not through theirs.
So it's got to be blasphemous.
Yes.
Or some variation of that, right? What made you become... Was there a triggering moment in your life that made you become passionate about this?
I think when I studied healing touch first, which is the energy medicine that's used in the progressive medical schools and nursing schools, where people were healing with their hands.
To be fair to everybody, and I don't want to interrupt you, but that's what I do.
Yeah.
When I have somebody really smart on, it's really easy for an audience to automatically believe anything that somebody really smart says with big words. So I will stop every once in a while, because I will stop to ask you what the fuck some of those words mean.
Sure.
Because I know that there's people watching going, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, but he sounds really smart, so I'm just going to believe him. But that's why I do that.
Right.
So anyway, back to the trigger.
Okay. Yeah, so I was doing healing touch, and one of the things that they do is they have a pendulum, and they run this pendulum over the 5 bodies of, or the 7 energy centers. And the pendulum, and we could do it now, the pendulum, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be, it could be a rock on a string. It'll start to spin clockwise on each and every energy center. But if there's a blockage, it'll start to spin.
Stop it. Get the fuck out of here.
Absolutely dead serious. It'll start to spin backwards or side to side. And all you have to do is just, is do it at home, do it with yourself, do it once at the top of the head, the middle of the eye,
Who's
the heart,
holding it?
and the other, whoever wants to. You have to be laying down. And the person has to take that string and just take some breaths and just, clear their mind. And then watch this thing starts to spin. It's crazy. And it'll do it on.
You buying this, Vic?
Okay. Anyway, look it up.
I love this.
Yeah, I know. No, it's wild stuff. So anyway, since then, we've purchased equipment that'll actually do the measuring. And we're going to be doing that.
So that's my next question.
Yeah.
Because somebody actually brought up a good point of how do we know what that fucking thing is actually measuring?
Which one, the pendulum?
Fuck any of them. But well, for instance, this morning when we were holding our thumbs on it, right? It's like, okay, what is it actually measuring to give you that data, right? Like,
perfectly
I
easy.
Understand asking, what is my heart rate or what is my, right? So what is it actually measuring?
It's measuring heart rate variability. Now that's
what that was?
That's what that was.
Okay.
HRV, a lot of us know that have these smartwatches.
How good is the one that I get HRV on my Whoop band?
On the Whoop, I would say to be realistic, it's not as good as the Garmin. Of all the ones that we've done measurements on, Garmin is the best. It'll still give you an idea.
Yeah. It tells you when it's low and when it's high.
Yes.
And mine's low as shit. Like the first 2 or 3 days I come down here.
Yeah.
I sleep like shit.
Yeah.
Like I'm a mess.
That's right.
I feel like hell. And like the last 2 days, my HRV has been low as fuck.
Right.
Like it's been down in the 30s, and I'm usually like 70s, 80s.
Airplanes will do that to you.
Will it? Is that something that'll do it?
Absolutely. It takes 2 or 3 days to acclimate and to get your HRV back to a higher state. But it is the measurement between the heartbeats. On an EKG, we have a PQRST wave, and the highest wave, there's an interval between them. And when it varies, that's good.
Right.
If it stays perfectly even, that's not good.
Right.
And the reason is because our autonomic nervous system, that's also rest and digest and fight or flight, are working on the heart together, and they should be. And so the heartbeats aren't always even. When one is higher than the other, then your heart rate is going to be, the interval is going to be even. And that's what we see a lot today in our society, because we have so much stress and we don't believe it. And they come in and say, "Doc, I feel fine," because they've adapted to this high cortisol level.
Right.
They've adapted to this high intensity fight or flight, and they're living there. We're living there. All of us are. And what we're trying to do is find those ways to be able to bring all that stuff back into homeostasis.
So is there a correlation then between, if you have, say you have a higher HRV, does that mean that your cortisol levels are lower in that?
And that time, it means they probably go back to even. Okay. Because we rarely see too much parasympathetic. What I mean by that, too much rest and digest. Usually it just comes back. And so we can see it's supposed to be even. Just perfectly even.
And when people are, because HRVs become a pretty popular term because of all of the tracking mechanisms that we have and we wear and all that kind of stuff. But I think, to your point, like not a lot of people actually know what it is. They're just like, if my HRV's high, I'm doing well. Right.
And you are.
But everybody is a little bit different on what that number is high for them.
Right.
Correct?
Right. Yeah.
So you can't just be like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not stating this as fact like I know. This is more of a question. But you can't go out and say, my HRV is 110 and automatically assume that's amazing, or say it's 70 and say that's amazing, or say that it's 60. It's very much kind of baseline of who you are, and as you get older, it goes down anyway, right?
Perfectly. What I was going to say is about age.
Yeah.
It's
when it's lower, you should be in the hundreds.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. When you're younger, you should, your HRV is going to be, booming. It's going to be absolutely.
So what is booming?
Booming.
Like what would be a high number?
Well, it's
if you're 25.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how the Whoop measures, but we measure it in intervals of, so many milliseconds, and that's what I look at as a scientist. So I'm looking at the different, at the milliseconds. If they're giving you a rating or a number, then...
So I get a number. Let's see if we can understand what the number means. HRV, heart rate variability, is the variance in time between heartbeats. It is an indicator of how well your body can perform and adapt to its environment. Your HRV of 35 ms
milliseconds
is below your typical range of 53 to 74, which signals you're recovering from external factors. Right. And then they give me some factors. because I need to be like, my average now is 60s, 70s. But just 3 years ago, I was consistently in the low hundreds.
Wow.
But I'm in better shape now than I was then.
Right.
Like, and eat healthier and like whatever it is. So age obviously impacts that.
Can impact that.
Right. So if somebody is sitting there on their Whoop band and they're like, for instance, right, and they're looking at it, because is that how you judge it then, by that MS?
Yes, milliseconds. Yeah.
Okay.
The distance between. Yeah.
So is there a range that is like, this is healthy, especially if you're 45, right? I'm 45, right?
Right.
So like if you're 45 and you're just under 100 or whatever it is, it's like you're doing pretty well.
Absolutely.
Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's really good.
Okay. So, and then as you get older, you probably just don't want to wear it anymore because you'll get depressed. Would that be accurate?
Yeah.
Because how old are you?
I am 68.
And what's your age on the thing?
It's going to be about 42.
Really?
Yeah.
All the time?
No, not all the time, but pretty much.
Well, I mean, like if you went and tested it without doing the breathing thing that we did and whatever,
right?
Would you come up in that 40s range?
I would probably come up a little bit.
Yeah, but you'd be in that 40s range still.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be your age.
No.
Because of what you do on the daily.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah, I work in 5G scalar rooms, which are rooms made for meditation. They have all this different energy running through them. I also work with people, moving energy, so things like that.
Go yell at them.
Yeah, so things like that can help me increase my heart rate variability. And plus, I love cold plunge.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because people love that shit.
Yeah.
Right? And like that's a huge hot topic. Right.
Right.
Hot topic. That didn't work, did it? Hot topic is cold plunge. Because I've done quite a few, but I've never taken the time to be extremely consistent with it.
Right.
And that's what we were talking about this morning, was figuring out how to become consistent with it. Because I think a lot of people are just like, oh, I do this, on a retreat, or I do it, like at a thing or whatever. And like, that was very intense, right? And they're like, maybe I'll do it again next year.
Right.
But what, if you can explain to everybody what the reason is that you would want to get consistent at it, and what it actually does when you're doing a cold plunge.
Right. Well, one of the things we have to go back to the autonomic nervous system,
okay.
The rest and digest, and the fight or flight. And like I said, we live in the fight or flight. But one of the things that happens when we jump into a cold plunge is that we increase the parasympathetic system. Especially after we get out. You're in there for 3 minutes, you get out, and then things start to balance out. And
that's the fight or flight.
That's the fight or flight starts to lessen, and the rest and digest starts to increase.
That's parasympathetic.
Yes, that's parasympathetic.
Right? My coach is going to be so mad that I'm asking these questions like I don't know him, because he's only told me 8,000 fucking times. But so the parasympathetic is the fight or flight. Right. We want to get that down.
Parasympathetic is the rest and digest.
That's the rest and digest.
Sympathetic is fight or flight.
Right. I do remember that, because it always confused me, because I was like sympathetic. I'm like, aw. And I was trying to have a word connection with it, but it was opposite of what I thought, right?
Right.
So sympathetic is bad.
Yes. Well, it's not bad, but in this case,
in this case, it's bad. Yeah. Parasympathetic is the rest and digest.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
So we're looking for more rest and digest.
Right.
And I found that so far, a lot of people have told me that you can breathing breathing is good for like reducing your biological age. We saw that today.
Yep.
But it did nothing for our parasympathetic, and that is one of the things that I had to work.
Because those numbers were still really high. We were just learning how to live with it.
We're just learning how to live with it. So some people who work with that say, do breathing exercise, and I can't get, even myself, I've done it for 20 minutes and then gone in there, and my parasympathetic's the same. I go into a cold plunge, I get out, and 3 minutes later I'm measuring and I'm chilled. And that whole day and that evening, when I just wanted to go lay down and relax, sit in the couch and watch TV, because, my parasympathetics is balanced. I feel so good. It's when you
mentioned that you also did cryo. And so when I first started doing cryo, but I did it for inflammation, right? I didn't do it for any of the other health benefits because I didn't know there was any health benefits at the time. Am I correct in saying that the effects of doing a 3-minute cold plunge, though, are they more beneficial or different from doing cryo? Right.
They should be the same. I don't think there's been any studies on the cryo therapy rooms. I know that, what I've done, and I've seen some increase, but they weren't as dramatic as it was with the cold plunge.
With the cold plunge?
With the cold plunge, yeah.
Okay. Any idea why?
I don't know. I think it's that it may be a belief system. Okay. There you go again.
Yeah.
I know if I'm getting in there, when I get out, it's like, I just want to chill. When I get out of a cryo, I'm ready to go run a marathon. I said, this feels so good. I don't have any more inflammation. I feel great. Right. I go work out. This is great stuff. But I don't want to do that after a cold plunge. I want to go chill. So there's something up here that is telling me that, this is good, then go chill. Go get in a hot sauna or something.
So then what are the benefits of the sauna?
Right. Yeah. Sauna against circulation. It's, it's all about circulation, moving metabolites, things start to, all your blood vessels start to dilate. You're starting to sweat. Anytime you sweat, you're getting rid of toxins, and your heart rate increases because of the heat. And when that happens too, you're breathing faster. That gets rid of toxins. All the blood that's going through your kidneys and it's being filtered through your liver, it's being filtered, and eventually you'll get eliminated. But it's during that time that all this stuff is you're removing toxins.
So, and that's good to do in conjunction with.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people will do cold plunge sauna and then go back to cold plunge, or is it the opposite?
They could do, it depends, but from what I hear, it's cold plunge, sauna, cold plunge, and then home.
That was what I did.
Yeah.
That was what I did with my buddy in California. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of crazy. Especially when you got back in the cold plunge.
Right.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, that was.
That was fucking intense.
Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah, very intense. Hey, everybody, we're going to take a quick little break here. I want to stop and thank our new sponsor. If you're serious about getting your time back and scaling your business, then SMA Support Services is your secret weapon. I use SMA for all of our support and admin tasks. Everything from back office management, day-to-day admin, even a call center. Their team frees up my staff to stay focused on high-level, revenue-generating activities. And that, let me tell you, is a fucking game changer. SMA isn't just support. They're a partner that keeps our operations running smooth and efficiently. So if you want to focus on growing your business and leave the support work to the pros, hit up SMA Support Services. Belief systems.
Oh, yeah.
What is the best way? And I think the reason I asked this question is because it really bothered me a little bit this morning when that moment came up, when I was just like, it either is or, whatever you believe is true, whatever. And it's like, so if you choose to fucking believe this thing that is negatively affecting you, at this point it's fucking on you, right? Like, we have to figure it out. But the question is, how do we change our belief system?
That's really good. The first thing that we got to realize, and this will put everything in perspective, we have 60,000 thoughts a day. 85% of them are negative. 95% of them are the same thoughts we had yesterday. And of the 85% that are negative, only 7% are negative towards other people. The rest of that's negative towards ourselves.
Oh, he hasn't met me yet. Sorry.
Yeah. So and we don't realize how these subtle things, and our subconscious is a computer. The minute you say, I feel bad, it goes, I know how to feel bad. Let's do it. I know, I can show you. And boom, you feel bad.
Wait, it's 60,000 thoughts a day?
Yeah.
How many are about sex? Is that in the stat?
It's not in the stat. This stat was
you should know that fucking stat, Gary.
The National Science Foundation.
Let's look it up.
Yeah.
Hold on, we're gonna look this up real quick.
I think that's age related.
Let's see, it's in chat. Let's see if ChatGPT has it.
Right.
Okay, hold on. Let's ask real quick.
Yeah.
No, not choose a voice.
Hi there.
Oh, fuck you. All right, we're going to look this up later. I really want, because I've heard that stat before.
Right.
Like everybody thought it was a joke, but I'd love to know
Right.
Just to be able to put those two together, right? Because if it's like, oh, 60,000, this many percent is negative, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, and this percent is about getting banged. Like, you know, like,
right.
I don't know, that'd just be fun to know. But going back to belief system, so how do we, based on that information then, what do we do with it?
Well, one of the things that, and a good example is, I had a professor in college. He's really famous now. He does a lot of retreats. His name is Joe Dispenza, and he does retreats where he measures people's brainwaves while they're meditating. And there's literally a couple of thousand people that go to these things at a time. There's 7 days, and after the 7 days, they'll find somebody with the brainwave pattern that is so unusual, and that person will almost be seizing on the ground or laughing or crying. And then when they come to, they've had what's called a biological reset, meaning that they've actually cured their cancer, they've cured their eczema, their psoriasis, whatever. They've cured whatever their intent was to get better at. They've cured it themselves by the power of belief. So we've just seen it's just meditation that created the placebo, or it's just meditation that actually did it. But they were meditating, and they believed so powerfully that this would cure them.
And guided
and be guided. They were guided the whole time.
Right.
Yeah. And I have a client in Canada who has
so wait,
Parkinson's.
if you're sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
I did. But if you're in a deep meditation and you're being guided, aren't we on the cusp of hypnosis at that point?
Well, yeah.
Right?
Well, hypnosis is when somebody is, you're kind of...
Because they're putting you into a delta state when you're under hypnosis, or a
it's
theta?
actually an alpha.
Alpha state?
Alpha, sometimes theta, when you go into the deeper states.
Okay.
So, those two states is when you start to get into
delta sleep.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sorry.
Delta sleep. But but hypnosis and meditation are not that different. It's just somebody actually induces hypnosis while you yourself, create meditation. You yourself are a willing participant with yourself.
Right.
And you're listening to somebody talk you into it.
Right.
But they're not, don't know, it's a guided meditation. So, and it's a lot of times they call it a mindful meditation, where you're actually mindful of what you're doing. While in hypnosis, you're just kind of open and ready to be induced.
Right.
Yeah. So there's
very similar.
Yeah, but very similar, because we're still getting into the alpha brainwave state.
Right.
And that's the state where we have our subconscious mind is flowing like a river, and somebody is just putting, suggestions for the higher good in there. Now, there's really something interesting called the placebo effect, that the Placebo book written by Joe Dispenza, and he said that the CIA was doing some experimentation where they actually hypnotized the guy and told him to go out and shoot somebody. So they had like 25 guys, and this one guy just wouldn't give up. He was really deep. And they said, and the belief was, no, if you hypnotize somebody, you can't do any harm to anybody.
Oh, I thought it was you won't do what you don't want to do.
Yeah, exactly. You won't do what you want to do.
Because if he wanted to harm somebody, he'd fucking go do it.
Apparently, because they set up this whole dummy and everything, this whole dummy situation, and he had like a blank and his gun, and he shot the guy, still hypnotized. And then somebody walks up behind him, touches his finger, and says, "When I count from 1 to 5, you're going to wake up." And he was what? And then they told him what happened, and it was just amazing. Everybody was completely blown away. So induction of hypnosis can be very powerful, and when done, by these scientists, can make you do things you don't want to do.
Right.
That's what's freaky about it.
So back to the original question then of how do we change our belief system if we want to change our belief system, but we don't know how.
Right.
The first suggestion would be start meditating, right? So that you can start putting intention behind the meditation of the things that you want to change.
That's right.
Would that be accurate?
That'd be accurate. And the other one is neurolinguistic programming.
Okay.
And that is a type of self-hypnosis where they actually put in suggestions And they use binaural tones, flashing lights, and sometimes two people are talking at once, just to shut the busy mind down and open the alpha state or the subconscious. And when they open that door, all that information about, losing weight, stopping smoking, stopping, all those kind of things are put in there, and they're finding incredible results. I did that when I first got a neurolinguistic headset. First thing I did, I said I wanted to lose some weight. And I did it for about 7 days, and I said, I don't know if these things are working, but, I'm on my way. One day I woke up, and I wasn't hungry. No breakfast, no lunch. I ate dinner. And all of a sudden, since then, that's pretty much all I do. It's like, how did that happen? And it's because neurolinguistic program put a program in that wasn't hindered in any way to go into my mind, and I was able to change that belief system. The subconscious belief that I had to eat 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
Said, no, at your age, you need to slow down. That's what it was telling me. But, I didn't believe that. And subconsciously, when neurolinguistic program did that for me. So it's amazing.
Maybe I'm getting the initials and acronyms and all the stuff mixed up, but it's NLP.
Yes.
Right? And aren't people selling NLP now as a sales tool?
They can, yeah. They can.
Because I know there's a guy out there, Jeremy Minor, you know what I'm talking about, right? And he's like the king of, I can sell you anything and I'll teach you how to sell anything by using my NLP.
Absolutely. But what is he doing?
I don't know.
He's programming your subconscious to be a better salesman.
So he's priming his client by programming them before they make a decision into how to make a decision.
That's a different type of programming.
Theory.
But what he's doing when he actually gets people to buy into his system, what he's selling at that point is an NLP program to be able to help them sell or break, to sell the big deal. That's what it is.
So how would you use that in selling the big deal? Because you're priming your client, right?
Sure. What are the obstacles? One is that imposter syndrome. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be doing that. That's in itself is a blockage. You get rid of that. I'm maybe I need a haircut. Do I need to shave? What's this and that? You get rid of that, and all of a sudden you become this person that's actually authentic. Because authenticity is the most powerful tool that we have. So when they become more authentic, and neurolinguistic program will help you do that, whoever's going to buy, you can sell it to them.
What's that clip about something about different energies that they can measure and authenticity was?
Yeah, there was a study done, and Gary Brecka came out with this.
Yes.
And he said there was 60,000 people in the stadium, and they were talking about and measuring the energy in the stadium, and they were talking about love and caring and empathy and appreciation, authenticity and hate and things like that. And as they're talking about, these speakers talking, they were measuring it. But it was authenticity measured 10,000 times more powerful in energy than any of the other archetypes that were there. That was incredible. People respond to authenticity more than they respond to anything because it rings a tone in us. It's one of those things that that rings a tone and an area of consciousness that is associated with truth, the universal truths.
So that was going to be my next question to you, what does that word mean?
That means that is a state of consciousness that we call what's called supramental intellect.
No, I mean authenticity.
Authenticity.
Like, what does that word mean to you? What does authenticity mean to you?
It means the absolute truths, the universal truth. It's something that rings bells with each and every person. That's what authenticity is to me.
Interesting.
What is it to you?
It's a little different.
Tell me.
The truth part of it is correct, but it's more of, do I believe that you are portraying yourself as authentically who you are?
Okay.
Right? So the truth part is correct, but everybody's truths can be different when it comes to, we can call it a universal truth and belief, but in today's fucking world, there isn't such a fucking thing.
Right,
it doesn't
right.
seem like, right?
Right.
Because everybody's like, this is the truth, and we've gotten away from the fact that there is no truth anymore,
right.
and there is no facts anymore, and there are no science anymore, and there is no, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's just where society's gotten to. And so, which is fucking wild, by the way, but that's a whole nother podcast. But since I've been talking about authenticity for the last 3-4 years, something like that, it came to me and I became passionate about it because I saw so many people pretending to be something that they weren't. And then it made me register that when I was sitting in a room with somebody and I could feel the energy of the fact that they were true.
Right.
To who they were, and they weren't putting on a show to either impress me or make me like them or whatever it was. They were truly being whoever Gary is, right? And Gary could be a fucking cocksucker, right? I don't know.
Right.
But if that's what you were and that's what you were doing, I'd probably like you because at least you were authentically being a cocksucker.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And vice versa. And so to me, that's what authenticity is to me in humans, right? In people is looking at them and because it is an energy,
yes,
right? It's a connection and an energy of even if you don't like it,
right?
Even if you don't like their authentic self, it doesn't mean that they're not.
No,
it just means you don't fucking align with it, and that's okay.
Yeah,
right. And that's what people don't get when they get really mad at me because I curse a lot.
Right.
It's authentically who I am, right? If you don't like it and it offends you, you don't align with me, and that's cool. We don't have to fucking hang out.
Yeah.
I'm fine, right? The mistake I think people make is that when somebody like me goes and talks about being authentic, they think that I'm telling people that you have to act like me or speak like me or think like me to be authentic.
Right.
And that's not the case, right? It's authentic to who you truly are.
Right.
And we're all a little different.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I think it's that, and I think that's why I'm really getting into this whole energy thing because you can feel it.
Sure you can.
Like you can absolutely feel it. And for people that say that you can't, you're fucking wrong. Like,
right.
Like it just is.
Yeah. That's one of the things that we were going to do is do some measurements on what's called heart rate variability.
Yes. Yeah.
And
so we're doing that tomorrow?
Yeah. We can do that tomorrow. We're going to do some measurements on the next day.
Okay.
Yeah. But heart rate variability is really interesting because we're going to do a certain breathing pattern that's going to create heart-brain coherence. And this is coming out of a lab called Heart Math out of the Bay Area in San Francisco. And these guys are amazing. It's cutting edge stuff. And I wrote them and told them I was doing some research, and they sent me all the stuff. They say, here, take it for free. It's really expensive stuff, so I was really excited. What we actually will do is we'll have a black and white picture on the screen, and we'll use this heart rate variability. And the more authentic you get, the more real you get, while breathing through your heart and thinking about, things that have experiences that are really good, and a certain breathing pattern, you'll start to paint this black and white picture, and it'll start to come into color. And we can watch the chart, and when we say something like, but that girl that you love and you're no longer with, and you can see that the graph go down and everything go black and white. It's like you can watch what's going on. So you're right, we can measure the energy. And we know that this new technique that's actually working good with people with PTSD and things like that, and it takes about 3 minutes to learn. You're going to see that tomorrow. And it is called Heart Math. I recommend it highly for anybody. And if you do it every day, you're going to emanate a huge biofield. People are going to be attracted to you with the universal law of attraction. Yeah. Like we talked. When two waves of the same size meet, they double in size. And so when you have a big torus field from your heart, then, people are going to notice. And the ones you want are going to notice. No matter what kind of language you have, doesn't matter. Right. They're going to notice and they're going to accept, because that's just the way it is. That's the chemistry of love. That's the biology of love. It's a frequency, and it emanates from our heart. Our heart actually has more communication with our brain than our brain has with our heart. And there are neurites in our heart, meaning cells that be able to communicate feelings and things like that to our brain, and our brain circles them back. So we call it heart-brain coherence. We can see it on the EEG, the electroencephalogram, and we can see it as we start to paint these pictures. It's pretty phenomenal.
The last thing that I want to bring up, because I remember you touched on it briefly this morning, and I know you had a lot going on, and so we were kind of in a hurry, and I didn't want to bother you with this question. I wanted you to explain a little bit more when you touched on the entanglement theory.
Aha, right.
Because I think that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, entanglement's really interesting. It's becoming to the forefront more now as we're getting into, there's been some tapes called the telepathy tapes, and they're about autistic children being able to have mental telepathy as well as other gifts. And with that, this connection between mother and child, and when the child can see through the mother's eyes, it can't communicate because it's lost its ability to intellectualize or express its ability, its brilliance. So that said, when two particles are entangled, no matter if they're 3 inches apart from each other or across the universe, when one turns, the other one will turn simultaneously, no matter what. And so when we see that, when somebody's looking through somebody else's eyes, a bit of telepathy, that's entanglement. That's a type of entanglement that we say, how could that be? How can people do that? Or when you're looking at the phone, somebody's going to call, you pick it up and it's them.
So that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I've had that where I've thought about somebody for a week, and I'm like, man, I wonder what they're doing, and blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, you get an email.
Yeah.
Right? You haven't heard from them in 5 years, or you get a phone call and you're like, what the fuck?
Right.
And they're like, I just been thinking about you for a week. It's like, God damn, so was I. That's
entanglement.
That's entanglement.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
Yeah.
And we all just think it's a coincidence.
Right.
Right? Until we study it and learn about it and whatever.
Right.
But it's a thing. It's a real thing that has to do with what? You said with particles?
Yeah. We break down a particle. So first we have a molecule, and we know molecules are made up of atoms. And atoms have a nucleus and an electron. And they also have protons and neutrons. And if we break those protons and neutrons down, we have quarks. And if we break the quarks open, the theory is that there's little vibrating strings. And those strings are part of what they call the string theory.
Yeah.
And that's what they're not vibrating at the same intensity. They're all different, and as such, they create different effects. So when we have these little particles that are entangled, the two strings are now.
So how do they become entangled?
That's really good. That's really good. I love that, because I don't actually know, because I'm not a quantum physicist, but I have friends that are, that work at the CERN super collider thing, and they can actually entangle particles. And they do that. And they're saying that the future of it is really interesting, because let's just say that you needed a certain medication to go to a certain body part, like a tumor cell, but you didn't want it to affect the others. So it's inert until you actually affect its entangled particle, then it becomes active right there on site.
Okay.
So those are the kind of things that they're looking at with medicine. Also, supercomputing, and that's becoming part of it. And they understand entanglement when it comes to that part of quantum mechanics.
Do people have theories of the hypothetical that I just gave about two people, right?
Right.
And how that part of entanglement theory, which isn't, supercomputers and fucking spinners and all the other stuff you're talking about, how is that just an energy that exchanges?
Yes.
And then is just there and stays?
Energy is, the particles are energy.
Okay. Right. Okay.
And so they transmit to us, and they're not transmitting at the speed of light, they're transmitting instantaneously. When you're entangled with somebody, it's instantaneous. There's, it's faster than the speed of light. If there was another word I could use faster than it's, it's instantaneous.
I think instant, yeah.
Yeah,
the only one
there is no other word,
right.
but it just happens at the very exact same time. There's no difference in measurements. And so, and like I say, distance doesn't matter. So that's the magic of this.
Okay. That's really interesting.
I know, isn't that fascinating?
I could literally do this for like 2.5 hours. Like, you're probably going to get bothered. Like, I'm probably just going to call you one day and be like, I need to know more about this.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
So at the end of, we're going to start wrapping up here. And at the end of all of our episodes, what I really like to do is I always give the floor back to the guest for the last 2 or 3 minutes to either expand on something that we started digging into that I fucking interrupted you and we didn't finish down the rabbit hole, or that you came in here and you're like, man, I really want to make sure we talk about this, and then dipshit interviewing me didn't fucking bring it up, and so I want to make sure that I get it. So I want to make sure that whatever it was that was on your mind either during the interview or before you came in, that the audience has an opportunity to hear. So
sure.
Back on you.
One of the things that I always like to tell my clients is something that is not obvious to everybody, but thought and thinking are two different things. And it's real important that we know this. I read a book called Don't Believe Everything You Think by a gentleman by the name of Joseph Wynn. And I wrote a review for him, told him I really liked it, and I told him I was doing research. Anyway, make a long story short, we became friends, and we talk about every couple of months for hours. And he's just written a new book. It's in all the Barnes and Nobles and all the bookstores, even in Walmart. And so it's called Don't Believe Everything You Think. And international bestseller. But he came to the conclusion after all that thought and thinking are two different things. Thoughts are nouns and they're passive. Thinking's their verb and they're active. Thoughts we'll always have. They just keep coming through our head. But thinking about them is actually a choice. And he says the only time that you think is when you think about a thought. Now, and give that a thought.
Whew.
Yeah, okay. So the only time you think is when you think about a thought. And I had to...
So a thought would be fleeting.
A thought is fleeting.
Right?
Yeah.
Would that be a good way to describe it? A thought would be fleeting.
Yeah.
And then...
You can stop it and say, oh, wait a minute.
Thinking would be dwelling on said thought.
Yeah, right.
Would that be an easier way to describe it?
That's right.
Okay.
And so, and to come back...
I thought that was like you got it, Eric.
And so at a point in his book, he came to a statement that I had to really think of. And it says that thinking is the cause of all human suffering. And I go, wait a minute, okay, let's think about this. And so I was doing some research in Barcelona, 7 days of research, long hours. And I had just finished, was with 100 students of spinal flow. And we were in this really nice hotel, one of these conference rooms. And I said, the last day I couldn't wait to get out. So Saturday was the day I was going to go to a paella cooking class. I was walking there, it was about 45 minutes away. And there was we were at a crowded intersection, and I was about to cross the crosswalk, and a child ran out in front of a taxi cab.
Okay.
And it was pretty heartbreaking. And I went to one knee, knowing that in my first job as a first responder, I had worked, plane crashes. I knew this stuff was coming back. I could just feel myself going into a real bad state really fast. It was going to be a hit of PTSD, and I didn't want to go there. So I just automatically defaulted to don't think, just pray. Don't think. So after I did everything I could, and there's a lot of people around, so I did what I could, and I said, better for me to get out of the way, and I started walking saying this, and every once in a while I'll throw in a prayer, but it's don't think, just pray. For 45 minutes when I got to my paella cooking class, it was all gone.
Right.
I didn't feel any guilt, I didn't feel any trauma, and I still haven't to this day. And I'm thinking, you know what? That stuff works. And we talked about it before. It's just simple. You just got to believe in it.
Right.
And so I had a mantra, don't think, just pray. It just came to me, and it worked. So I think that's one of the biggest things I'd want people to know, that a lot of our problems right now, if you think about them, which the outcome, 90% of the times we're beating somebody up for cutting us off, nothing ever happens. You know, it's very rare that something never happens. So, you know, it's just, why do we worry about it? Because that 90% is one of those things where we're just churning at it, and it's just getting our cortisol up, and it's, you know, we're constantly living at that high threshold. So yeah, so that was the biggest thing that I wanted to say that we didn't touch on.
If people want to learn how to understand this better, and because I think one of the biggest things that I would take out of watching this episode is, I think there's a lot of people that are in the same position as the person that we were talking about earlier that don't necessarily believe that they can change a belief, right? They're like, this is just what I believe. Like, I can't do that. Is there one or two books that somebody would start with to be like, this is something I really want to know more about, and I want to be able to be better at this? It has actionable steps in it to be able to start practicing and having repeatable things that one can do.
Yeah, there's some books by Joe Dispenza.
It would have been great if it would have been your book.
Yeah,
but sorry, I didn't do that. Yeah, sorry.
Mine are more geared towards scientists and stuff.
Joe Dispenza.
Joe Dispenza is the author.
And that was your old professor?
Yeah, old professor. Okay. And it's The Power of Belief. Okay. Is one of them. I'm sorry, it's not The Power of Belief. I just was reading a book, Power of Belief. It is We Are Placebo. I think that's the name of it.
We Are Placebo.
Yeah. And so, and there's others about, you know, getting out of your own way, and there's steps to do it and how he does it. He's a really meditating guy.
So let's start with Joe Dispenza.
I would say with Joe.
But he's not writing the book for the scientists, like you said. He's writing the book for normal people.
He's writing the book for normal people, but he also, he's talking to you. He's changing the woo-woo to science.
Got it. Okay.
And he's the guy that recently did something incredible. He had, you know, before COVID, he did this. I've got to prove to the world that this isn't woo-woo. Right. So he had blood tests done for people, for, you know, a few of the participants that were moderate novice meditators, we'd call it. And so after COVID, the University of California, San Diego, very prestigious medical school and university, was doing some research, and they said they pulled the blood from these participants, and they were amazed. So they called Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe, and they said, you know, we just got your results back, and you won't believe it. He says, what's happened is that people who were doing your meditation created a protein that actually blocked COVID. And so that was interesting, blocked it from actually entering the cell. He says, we don't know how or why, but that's one of the things. The other thing it was doing is that the stem cells were creating exosomes, meaning parts of a cell with just the DNA and RNA, and going to places like the tumor sites or whatever it was, disease, and giving the information for health. And that was going on with this meditation that he was doing, these 7-day programs. So what he does is he talks to you about this in a scientific way. This is what we've done to do this. This is why, you know, we believe in it, and this is why we think it's true, and we've proved it.
And this is what you can do to obtain.
And this is what you can do to obtain it. And what he'll do is his books, and if you go on, look him up on like audiobooks.
Okay.
And you'll see a bunch, and some of them say this is the 5-step meditation for, you know, calming the mind, and doing this and doing that, and the power and changing the power of belief. The other one is The Biology of Belief, Bruce Lipton.
Bruce Lipton.
Yeah,
okay.
he was another professor of mine, really good, and it was one of the things. The course is called Power of Belief, really interesting. And then the last one, of course, was Joe Dispenza's. Not Joe Dispenza. I'm sorry. It was Don't Believe Everything You Think. You know,
that's the one.
Joseph Wynn.
Yeah,
read that one. Get an audiobook. Okay. It's really a short read. You can do it in about 4 or 5 hours. It's fantastic.
Plug your book.
My book.
Yeah, plug your book for everybody.
I was a submersible pilot in one of my careers. For 12 years, I worked around the world, and I wrote a book called Down the Cayman Wall, and it's on Amazon, and it's about my work with deep subs in the BBC when we were filming David Attenborough's Blue Planet, and the giant shark that we encountered during that time that attacked our sub. It was pretty amazing. So yeah, that would be the one.
Down the Cayman wall.
Down the
Awesome.
Cayman wall.
Cool.
Yeah.
Gary, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being part of what we're doing here. I know everybody's getting a ton out of it, and if they're not, fuck them, because I am. So like, I'm having a great time. Thank you everybody for tuning in again. I really appreciate it. At the end of every episode, I always have to mention my sponsor, SMA Support Services. I fucking love these guys. If you don't know about them, please look them up. If you need virtual assistance, you need to build your back end, please look up SMA Support Services. Thank you for tuning in, and remember everybody to be authentic or get the fuck out.
If you can't be authentic, get the fuck out if you can't be authentic. Get the fuck out if you can't be authentic. Yeah. Swipes.